AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI. It's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
It is my great honor to welcome you all to Starfleet Academy.
There's never been a better time to enroll in Star Trek.
It's our job to prepare you for the unimaginable. To the night, cadet!
In high-pressure situations, positive reinforcement is crucial to one's success. You're doing a great job.
This is what we train for.
These friends of mine, they all live for something bigger than themselves.
And that's Starfleet.
Starfleet Academy. New series now streaming on Paramount+.
Imagine that this line represents time. Present 1985. Future. Past. Prior to this point in time, somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent, creating an alternate 1985. Alternate you, me, and Einstein. But reality for everyone else.
Welcome back to Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Jeremy, and today we're going to jump right back into the path that we were in last week with our guest, Lance Dorrel. And we're just going to jump right into where I cut him off so rudely at the point where he was about to jump in and tell us all about Atlantis and Lemuria. But before we do that, let's go ahead and bring in my co-host, El Jefe.
What's
up,
do?
buddy?
What it do? What it do?
How you doing, bud?
I'm all right, man. I'm alive. You
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
You look Jefe-ish.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Nah, just a little stiff. My neck has been killing me for like 3 weeks now. So,
Yeah.
but other than that, man, I really can't complain.
Nice, man. All right. Moving on. Let's go ahead and jump into the guest for the night. Lance, how are you doing, man?
Hey guys, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back.
Of course.
Oh, absolutely, man. We got some good feedback from last week. Really good feedback. We had some people reach out. I don't know about Jeff, but I had some people definitely reach out to me and was like, "Hey, man, that guest that you had last week, that was good stuff." We'd love to hear him come back at some point. And I was like, "Hey, good news. He'll be back in a few days." So you don't have to wait long. We're going to jump right in to where I rudely cut you off last time.
No worries.
So you were getting ready to jump in and talk to us about how Atlantis and Lemuria ties into all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a good spot to lead off from with all that?
Yeah. So again, just for if anybody's just joining in real quick, again, my whole premises on this whole journey was I was trying to understand what happened at the Little Bighorn. One of history's greatest mysteries, the most written about battle in U.S. history, number 1 or 2. It goes back and forth with Gettysburg. And just when I thought I had finally the pieces of the untold story, what happened there, Donovan Taylor and I, who is a dear friend of mine, he is my Cheyenne brother. We set out to work on that project. It took us 6 years, and we were getting a lot of history from Native American and First Nations people from Canada. And then we started to run into very gracious folks from Mesoamerica who just started sharing a lot of history about the Native and First Nations people. And it all went back to when all were one at one time. No linguistic classifications, no tribal designations. Okay? So that's a good starting point. At the same time that those histories were being shared to us, I started catching a lot of stories about the Atlanteans from native folks up in the around the Great Lakes, which was pretty mind-boggling. And then catching a lot of that history also from people, First Nations people, mainly in Saskatchewan, the province of Saskatchewan. And that really took me by shock. But again, if you don't know, you don't know. And you try not to be static with your research and keeping a very open mind. And so basically what I was taught was these Atlanteans, when they fled out of the Straits of Gibraltar, I believe that area, there's all that speculation about where it is, that they came into the northeastern United States seaboard and developed relationships with the native people on the eastern seaboard. Okay. At the same time, they went into Mesoamerica and South America. At the same time, all that information's coming, started catching glimpses of the Lemurians out of the South Pacific, coming into the American West Coast, Mexico West Coast, and down in Peru. And these stories seem to coincide that these two highly advanced races that may have destroyed themselves had been fled these areas, possibly had a lot of dealings with the star people and star travelers and with people from other galaxies. You know, I mean, we have to keep a very open mind in this, and you guys are that way and I'm that way. But for the average person, they're like, that sounds woo-woo. Well, if it's woo-woo, then they've all got the same stories. So I look for consistency, and these stories just kept coming and coming. And to wrap this part of it up, look at the Hopi. The Hopi talk about the Atlanteans. The Mayans have a lot of history with the Atlanteans. The Cherokee have history. And so it just kind of morphed into that. And then once I had that in my purview, other pieces started coming. So everywhere I turned, they were somewhere.
So there's a lot of lore behind Atlantis and Lemuria, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of which that I've heard has to deal with the concept of Hollow Earth. A lot of them going and falling down into the hollows of the earth, or taking shelter into the hollows of the earth. Back when the best way I can describe it is the biblical flood event occurs, right? Now, of course, there's cultures all around the world that tell of many different things. They all have their flooding events. They all seem to have their stories of advanced civilizations that you can tie into either Lemuria or Atlantis. Now, what was the general description that the Native Americans or the Mesoamericans what did they describe these Atlanteans as being? Were they advanced like the Atlanteans that we know of, that we hear about, or were they more of just equal people to them?
Good question. They were highly advanced compared to the people that were in North America, Mesoamerica, and South America. For instance, the Atlanteans that came to the Mayans, they said they came in some type of crafts, and it was like one person was in a craft, and it was like a cylinder, oh man, you guys have seen that, where it's like it looks like an astronaut laying in the capsule, right?
Yeah, the Mayan relief carving. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
It's like a cryopod kind of thing.
Yep.
They talk about coming in cylinders like that. That's never left my memory. That one's in there. It talks about the Mayans, the Atlanteans infusing the red people, and that's not me putting a term on people. That's from native people. And the Lemurians infusing the brown race. Okay? Is the brown race people of South America and Mesoamerica and the Pacific Islands? Yeah, it sure seems that way. So coming in these crafts was one of them. But there was something, there was a connection with interventions from the star ancestors, the star people, and the star beings that these people they came to never, ever forgot. So, that's where this all starts. But there's a lot of stuff that we don't even know about that was so covered up, you guys, and you guys know this. And I think it goes back to the mound builders. Because, again, we don't know who the first peopling of North America is. We got a pretty good idea on number 2, 3, and 4. And 2 is the people from South America, Mesoamerica. But we don't know really who was here, the first group, who these mound builders were, or who were some of these people said to be possibly giants. But again, when you're saying a giant, you don't want to go there where it's 10 to 12 feet. It may be somebody who was 6 foot, 6'6", 6'8", on and on. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets a little hard. But you got to remember too, like you were saying, Jeremy, there was these floods and cataclysmic events, and there's a lot of stuff where these Lemurians and Mayans, or excuse me, keep saying Mayans, the Lemurians and the Atlanteans seem to have some kind of a struggle with each other. And they may have started one of these cataclysmic events. Okay.
So there's a lot of geological evidence of a flood, and this is something that I've meant to dive into quite a bit. Jeff has tied this into, what was the topic that you did that one time, Jeff?
The Younger Dryas impact.
That's right, the Younger Dryas impact. But there's a lot of evidence that the Earth may just go through cycles of flooding, and they say that there's more water under the surface of the planet than there is on the surface of the planet. And I heard an interesting fact the other day that I just thought was kind of mind blowing, and it just kind of puts things into perspective for you. That's if we have some flat earthers that listen to this, and Jeff, depending on what day of the week it is, will bounce back and forth on that. But if you're one of the people who believe that the Earth is a globe, this one will connect for you. So there's more depth to the Earth when you go to the core of the Earth than there is in distance between New York and LA. Now, think about that. That's a lot of space, and then you take that and you include the entire innards of the planet, and you think of all the caverns that can be in that. That's a lot of places for water to be. Now you take the planet and you throw it out into a vacuum of space and you spin it. You basically create a centrifuge, right? What happens in a centrifuge? I mean, if anybody's ever jumped in the Gravitron ride at their local carnival, they know, right? You stick to the wall. I mean, you'd have to think at some point, sometime, water's going to spill out. It's going to come to the surface, because one of the biggest arguments that I've heard is, against the flood idea, is where does all the water come from? There's not enough ice on the surface of the planet to create that amount of flooding. Well, I don't believe that the water comes from the surface of the planet. I believe it comes from underneath. So there could be these ebbs and flows, sort of like a breathing effect on the planet, where water escapes these gigantic caverns, comes to the surface, wipes everything out, and civilizations could be inside the inner Earth, and I find that absolutely fascinating. And when I did my deep dive into the hollow Earth concept, this was actually a whole part of it that I had to cut out just because I already made it 4 episodes long, and I think each episode was almost an hour long already. So I had to kind of cut it out a little bit, but there was this whole concept that I dove into where I discussed the longest borehole that humans have ever drilled was only about a little over 4 miles deep, and that's in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And the hole is literally just the size of, it's about 6 inches wide. The entire hole is only about 6 inches wide, and it's about 4 miles deep. That's as far as we've ever drilled. That's it. There's a lot of stuff underneath this planet that we don't know about. So I guess I went off on a bit of a tangent there because I know the argument that I'm going to get in my messages about the flood.
The water. This, I think there's just, I agree with you to an extent, but I do think that you got to remember, man, like before the Younger Dryas events, all of the oceans were about 400 feet lower. Okay. So when people say there's not enough water on the surface to account for these floods, well, there is. The entire world's oceans rose 400 feet. That's the water. And all of the coastline that was submerged, which is a lot, are the lands that were flooded, right? So, and then, you could add into the cataclysms like the scablands and stuff like that in the northwest of the United States. Like there was definitely massive floods that washed across the North American continent, right? And whatever was there was completely just scratched off the surface of the earth.
Well, the entire Uinta Basin of Utah was a giant.
All of that
was a giant lake.
All right, all of that. And then, I also just want to point something out too on the giants thing. I don't know how real some of the reports are, right? But there's a book called Giants of America. And in that book, there's a bunch of articles that were published like all through like the second half of the 1800s and like the early 1900s. And a lot of those articles were basically saying that they were digging up some of these burial mounds, and they were finding 9, 12, 14-foot skeletons in those mounds. Mm-hmm. So, I hear what you're saying. Like back in those days, 6 foot, 6'6" was a giant. And that they were probably finding those things too. And those people were probably revered as giants. But I also think that there were 12 and 14-foot giants walking around, according to those articles.
Yeah. Yeah. And for anybody to be so narrow-minded to say these things can't happen, that Atlanteans didn't exist, Lemurians didn't exist, and there were no giants here who possibly may have been the mound building culture.
Right.
That's just not sound reasoning to close those doors without a thorough investigation. And I mean, look, go back to the Jeremy talking about the subalterranean area of this planet. You've got the Hopi and you've got Lakota talk about emerging after cataclysmic events up from the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. I think it has a lot of merit to it based on their oral history, okay? Yeah. Because they're leaving the oral history tradition for their people. Now, did they cover some of this up when they were talking to ethnographers at the turn of the 20th century? Yeah, that's been proven. But the bottom line is you're trying to leave a trail for future generations. And if a person wants to take a deep dive into the Hopi, you just simply need to read Frank Waters' book on the Hopi. And Waters spent a considerable time with those folks in New Mexico, and he was able to glean an incredible amount of information. That book is a treasure trove that nobody talks about. And you have these stories of the underground tunnels and passages all through the American West. I mean, you guys have heard this, okay?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
How many times have we also heard in contemporary terms there possibly is so vast a network of underground systems and tunnels in our country that none of us know about,
Right.
either put here for military purposes to protect us all, or possibly for other nefarious means. I don't know. I'm not sure we'll ever know those things, unfortunately. But if we have to be pretty damn naive to think that there's nothing underground here that hasn't already been here that's not being used now. That's just not good common sense, right? That's just not that's closing the door on too much stuff. So yeah, it's this thing from underground. It needs to be investigated, and we're always taught to look up. Well, there's a lot of stories about underground as well.
I got a question for you, Lance. Because I only know of like the Hopis.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also they're a literal vampire. And suddenly my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Año nuevo, los mismos Extra Value Meals en McDonald's. Ahora te puedes llevar 2 snack wraps y papitas y una bebida mediana por solo $8. Solo por tiempo limitado. Precios y participación pueden variar. Los precios pueden ser más altos en Hawaii, Alaska y California y con entrega.
Stories or traditions through like people I've seen on YouTube and stuff, right? Like I've never actually talked to anybody who's actually looked into this. Do they reference the ant people, right? Isn't that what they say, the ant people? Yeah. Have you ever heard of Phil Schneider?
Phil Schneider?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Phil Schneider, he was a contractor for I forget which company, and they were part of building these giant underground networks. Yeah. And his whole thing was when they were building one of these underground bunkers or whatever they were, that they broke through to a cavern that was already there, and they encountered these beings. Now, he didn't say that they were aliens, but the way he described them were big heads, big eyes, and I always just kind of linked that to like the ant people, specifically because it was underground, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is interesting.
Well, that whole story about Phil Schneider in itself is intriguing because it sounds so X-File-ish that he came online and he was showing his hand where he had some fingers removed, right? And he goes down the rabbit hole, so to speak, leading us to believe that it all happened down in Dulce in New Mexico, remember?
Yeah.
And then there was some loose documentation that came out that the late, great John Lear brought out to the public in the early 90s, saying that these special forces guys got into a firefight down there and lost many of their men as well.
Yep.
I may be confusing those two events as one and the same, but the Phil Schneider thing, Jeff, I think the story is right on about the Hopis and the ant people, and I have no reason to believe that they're still not around just because we don't see them. But I think Phil Schneider was proven to be not who he said he was.
Agreed. And that's happening to Dr. Stephen Greer right now. But what I tell people is that when these psyops occur, when you have these agents of disinformation like Phil Schneider and Dr. Greer, they purposely do sprinkle truths into the lies, and that's what gets people way down the rabbit hole. So I think there are some truths to whether Phil Schneider was exactly who he said he was or not.
Right.
Those operations were happening.
You're on it, buddy. And listen, one of my dearest friends, I'm not going to drop his name, but he's still with us. He was a intelligence officer during the Vietnam War, and I got to spend a lot of time with that man, and I'm very blessed because of his knowledge of Native American history, and he's a Native American, and we'll leave it at that. But he was an intelligence officer, non-commissioned officer, and a lot of us that know him, when we have a lot of conversations on the research trail, we're always saying the old intelligence officer. Well, Jeff, you'll like this. The old intelligence officer always said, the best place to hide the truth is between two lies. And if you know this guy, he's right out of Central Casting, and man, he's just a beautiful human being, but he's all business at times. So you're right on it. You're right on it, Jeff. You're right on it.
Yeah. And that's relevant to what you're talking about with Atlantis and Lemuria too, because I run into this a lot being the conspiracy guy, right? When you say certain words that have been psyop to shit, right? Atlantis, Lemuria, chemtrails, anything like this, right? People immediately have an image in their mind of what they think that looks like, and it's easy for them to debunk that as crazy, right? So when you say the word Atlantis or Atlanteans, I know that most people are thinking of like fantastical like stuff, and they might have been, but they have this image from like the Disney movie, right? Or like whatever it might be, or like the show, like Stargate Atlantis or something. Like they have these preconceived notions of what this is, but it could have just been, humans that were just on another level of intelligence that we're not supposed to believe they had back then, right? Like they're supposed to be using copper tools or whatever the hell it is. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they figured out metallurgy, right? Maybe they figured out other ways to manipulate, physics and stuff like that, like we're doing now. It doesn't have to be that they were all flying around in UFOs and cities of gold and all that shit,
No, you're on it, because what you said, if everybody would stop and slow down and not be so quick to judge, a higher form of consciousness and spirituality sets anybody apart from anybody, right? So if they're on that level, I mean, look, you remember Edgar Casey out in Kentucky?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Casey went down that rabbit hole and did those readings on the Mayans. He talked about the Atlanteans and Lemurians, and he talked about them coming, and people don't talk about Edgar Casey anymore, but his research is still out there all over the internet for people to talk about.
He did a lot of stuff about after death too, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, and what's crazy about that is he was a very religious man. Like in his non-meditative states or whatever, hypnotic states, whatever he was in, he was like, from what I understand, he was actually disturbed by his own, recountings of these things. Like, when he would come to his conscious mind, he was like, whoa, like this is not, this goes against my faith, but he still did it. And that's kind of one of the things that makes me feel like he was on point.
Yeah, I mean, let's put this in perspective. The Atlanteans, okay, if you pick up the research trail and you're just following this as if it existed, because that's what you got to do to follow the research trail, in my humble opinion, okay? You follow that evidence where it takes you. So the evidence was told to me in oral history. It's written extensively. And then if you follow this to Atlanteans coming into the American East, Northeast and Southeast, and into South America and Mesoamerica, that means that they're with these people as they come into Florida and Georgia later on. Okay? Those people, as we said last week, are the ancestors to the Caddoan-speaking people who will be Arikara, Pawnee, Wichita, to the Muskogean people. And the Creek people talk about this all the time. They're Muskogean, if I remember right. The Creek people talk about Atlanteans. Cherokee talk about them. Siouan-speaking people. And those people from Mesoamerica and South America are going to be the predecessors to the Siouan people. And remember this, the Hopi are responsible for some tribes around America when they rotate around, because Frank Waters said they went in 4 different directions, okay? The Chickasaw and I believe the Choctaw, who were at one time in Georgia and Tennessee, will tell you they're from the Hopi, as will the Nez Perce out in eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, and Idaho, okay? So the trail is Atlanteans to South America. Those people come into the United States and are the predecessors of many, many strong linguistic stocks who become the stalwarts of what we will be brought up on TV and in the history books, people who become the Sioux, right? And they then are called, what are they called? It's the Snakes. Okay? Now, where this all collides and where people don't realize this is that's the second peopling of this continent. The third peopling comes out of the Bering Land Bridge, down through Alaska, the Yukon Territory, all across all parts of Canada, down into the Northern Plains, Pacific Northwest. Those people, again, are said to be led by the Lenape, and then you got the Cree and the Ojibwa off them, and then from there you have all of these Algonquin people who are prodigious warriors, who, by the way, are highly represented at the Little Bighorn that nobody wants to talk about other than Cheyenne and a handful of Arapaho, which is a complete nonsense in the oral history. The Cheyennes did the fighting at the Little Bighorn. There were many Arapaho there, not just 5. There's also many Gros Ventres who are close to the Arapaho. There's Blackfeet, Cree, and Ojibwa at the Little Bighorn, based on oral history that is kept by all these different tribes that went underground as soon as that battle got over. The fourth peopling seems to be Dene people, who become the Apache Navajo people, okay? So if you put that in perspective and you just keep an open mind that that's how it goes, before that or during those migrations, there could have been floods, and there was some kind of a cataclysmic event that Algonquin people up around the Great Lakes talk about a meteor crashing and how they had to go underground for a number of years to survive that, okay? So, again, I'm not trying to lead anybody. I'm not trying to tell everybody that I have all the answers. I'm just telling you the path that what's been told to me, and it's been taught to me that we need to put all of these on a table. You work columns, and you see how many checks you get on the left and right, and you got to do a lot of research, a lot of reading, because it's so overwhelming, because you forget about a lot of it unless you go back in copious amounts of notes. But we're on the right trail here, and this information that's starting to kind of leak out now, it's good because it's making us look at things in a much better, open-minded possibility. So, that's just kind of, I wanted to bring the reader back up or the listeners back up to speed, but go ahead.
Oh, man. Shit. Wow.
Oh, go ahead.
How long ago was this meteor impact? Do you know?
Well, the way I interpreted it, the people who are the Ojibwa, also known as the Anishinaabe, were all around the Great Lakes and in southern Ontario and in Manitoba. Now, we know the Ojibwe and the Cree are 2 of the biggest Algonquin linguistic stocks of people in all over North America, okay? And they talk about this meteor streaking across, and everything became so hot that they had to go underwater and underground to avoid it. So again,
are you talking hundreds, thousands years, 10,000 years?
I don't think it was. I'm not gonna. I wouldn't want to put my eggs in the basket of 100,000. I think you need to come back up closer to your 10,000 number, and maybe even less than that.
12,800 to 11,600 years, multiple impacts. That's the Younger Dryas impact theory. That in between that 1,200 year period, there was multiple impacts from a fragmented comet that, you know, has, and we still have this. The Taurid meteor shower is fragments of the same comet. We still pass through this twice a year, and that's where you get the meteor showers, once in the spring and once in the fall.
I wonder if there's got to be some sort of engine that somebody has built, some sort of simulation where
there is.
Where, yeah, but where? Yeah,
I think Boston University. I think
there's got to be some simulation where they could have predicted where we would have seen most of the impacts at. I wonder if it was anywhere near the Great Lakes.
It was.
That's right where my freaking mind went, man.
Well, if you remember when I did that Younger Dryas thing, I mean, that was the main bulk of the impacts were in the North American ice sheet, which again was 2.5 miles thick of ice, right? So, you know, that's all that water, that 400 foot of sea level rise. When those comet fragments broke up in the atmosphere and pelted all across the North American ice sheet, right? It instantaneously melted trillions of gallons of ice, right, into water. And that's what flooded across the northern plains. That's what raised the sea levels. And again, this happened multiple times over that 1,200 years because we go through this debris field twice a year. So there was a lot of big impacts, you know, 10, 12,000 years ago. All the way down into Turkey too. Like, I mean, across the whole planet. Like Europe got fucking smacked, you know, all the way down into Turkey where Göbekli Tepe is, like, and that's been dated to right then, purposely buried.
Just because my mind works like this, just completely off the path here. I wonder when the Tunguska impact was.
This is interesting to me. All this is super interesting to me, Lance, for multiple reasons. One, because like we talked about this last week, right? The hidden history, the alternate history and stuff that we're taught. But really it's because you're telling me things that the native peoples have told you, and all of these things line up with all of these other people who are talking about these other things, right? So it's interesting to me, like even when we talk about like Atlantis, right? Like we all know Atlantis comes from the story from Plato and his uncle Solon, you know, and it was all this stuff, right? Solon went to Egypt and heard from the Egyptians about Atlantis, right? So we all think Plato's account of Atlantis is like the first, you know, and that's where it all comes from. But now you're telling me, no, all these different people that were here in the Americas have stories of Atlantis as well. So
yeah, let me take you down this quick rabbit hole. So again, well, I keep looking down into all of my notebooks, so bear with me because you know I love to do this, but I don't know if I'm just getting a little bit older and I'm on overload these days. I'm just not retaining like I used to. So apologies.
No
but
worries.
Bear with me. I'm gonna try to give you some information that's been told to me. And all I can say is the only time I'll pat myself on the back, at least I was smart enough to write it down, right? Okay. So we know roughly, I'm going back in the notes, somewhere around 11,000 years ago, Atlantis was destroyed. Is that destroyed because of that comet or that meteor? I don't know. But I believe it was the Greek, his name was Solar. He's the guy that talked about this because he had gone all over Egypt and Greece before Socrates, and then maybe down to Persia and the Temple of Sias. Let's see. He was taught by Egyptian priests, and I guess there was some kind of inscriptions that talks about the Earth's entire history. Yes, I remember this. And said there were many, many floods and fires that had Atlantis history that talked about the Atlanteans being destroyed in their history there, that Egypt actually came from the Atlanteans, and there was many old worlds that we never knew about, and they were destroyed and had powerful knowledge. Socrates was told this, but Plato's not even around yet. Plato taught by Socrates. Then he told the Atlantis story, but he couldn't write it down, the true Atlantis story. He had to do it as fiction, or he would be murdered like Socrates. We don't want to forget that, okay?
Right.
Okay. So let me tie it back into the Native American people here. So I just talked to you about the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe. They talk about how they directly came from the Atlanteans. Okay, I forgot about that. That's why I got to go through all this stuff again. So here you have Anishinaabe people who say they directly came from the Atlanteans. Anishinaabe are Algonquins who came out of East Central Asia, Mongolia, Siberia, islands north of Japan. So how the hell did they get involved with these Atlanteans who clear come out of the Straits of Gibraltar? Well, maybe those Algonquins went across Central Asia. See, again, we have to present all of this, and I could have left that out, but I want everybody to hear this. I don't have an answer. I'm just telling you. Okay? The second thing I want to bring to your attention real quick is the Sioux people, the Sioux people, Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, talked about worshiping the serpents, and they talked about specifically how the serpents are from the Atlanteans. Okay? So you got two major linguistic stocks, Siouan people, Algonquin people, now telling us that why they battled each other, they both came from Atlanteans. I just, when you put that out there and you try to understand that and wrap your mind about that, that is so real, because they don't have to go that far. And that's just what these people are. They have no reason to lie about these things. So I just wanted to throw those things out at you.
That's super interesting. Is there a reason why most of this history is like oral history?
Yeah.
Is that like, I mean, I'm assuming it's done on purpose, but do you know what that reason is?
Well, that's the traditional historical way that they recorded their
Yeah, no, I understand that, but like, is there like a fundamental reason, right? Like, seems like most other cultures have a habit of like etching shit into stone or writing it on cowhide, or like, writing this stuff down for future generations, where it seems like, native peoples in the Americas did a lot more oral passing down. And I just wonder if that was like a way for them to not have their history fucked with or something. I don't know,
Well, I mean, again, that's a whole, so there's a lot of really neat information to add to that, Jeff. So they did put this information down on winter hide counts on buffalo robes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I've yet to see anything that would indicate that they're telling us that they came from the Atlanteans or the Lemurians. But again, I might have missed something, but I feel pretty confident that that would have been brought to light. But let's go back to the Jeremy talking about oral history. What I have been taught through on my journey is these people, as we talked about in the last episode, were so highly advanced up and I don't want to say up until anything here, because they still are, but I just want to give the reader and the listener a picture here. We know at the Little Bighorn the government was chasing these people for these abilities, and what I'm trying to articulate here is these abilities to remember and recall at will, and to remember landmarks that they traveled over. And they were trained as youngsters to recall oral history, and that had a direct impact on keeping knowledge. Okay, so these people worked at oral history, they worked at teaching their young oral history, and they worked at reciting oral history because it might just come in handy to save them if they're out somewhere, some ways, out in the middle of nowhere. But also they were taught, and again, I think they had higher capabilities than we'll ever know to retain. Possibly they had better abilities to visualize what they're retaining. Okay, we're probably just going to scratch the surface on that, Jeff. But
yeah,
they had things that we don't have any clue of, man. They did.
That makes sense. I mean, that I guess I didn't even really consider that, right? Because like you were saying last week, these people had abilities, right? They were more in tune. They were probably accessing the spirit world on a level that none of us are, right? So,
oh yeah,
that makes more sense to me. Like, okay, listen, they were able to access the Akashic records and not just repeat oral history, but actually access the information and then recite it to you, right? Like that's kind of what I'm getting out of that. Maybe they could do the rituals, do the thing, and access the Akashic records if you believe in that kind of thing, and that is the information that they're able to recite.
So I got caught up going down my own rabbit hole here. I had to bring up my research on Hollow Earth here and look at my old script because I wanted to see if timelines lined up with the impact that Jeff was talking about and the impact that you were talking about and the Atlanteans and everything. And if my research lined up, and it seems that it does, it's pretty wild. I'm gonna read just this paragraph here from my research.
Sounds good.
From over a year and a half ago now, but still, it's the research comes from two books. The books are The Hollow Earth by Dr. Raymond Bernard and From the Subterranean World to the Sky, Flying Saucers by O.C. Huguenin. And I wrote, the men described civilization as rich, spiritual, scientific, and having incredible economic, civil, social, and cultural developments. It was Huguenin who would go on to eventually explain that the civilizations of the inner earth were first created by the lost societies of Atlantis and Lemuria after they found refuge under the earth's surface when their continents flooded and eventually sank. It was the Atlanteans who would colonize the inner earth first, roughly 11,500 years ago, and were eventually joined by the people of Lemuria 2,500 years ago. The Atlanteans were considered to be an extremely technologically advanced civilization who used energy gathered by the atmosphere to propel craft known as vimanas, which were described as being identical to the description of flying saucers. It was these vimanas that aided the safe transportation of all Atlanteans through the cavities of the poles of the Earth into their new subterranean home before their surface home was completely destroyed. Huguenin even goes on to explain that these vimanas were most likely only used for interplanetary traveling until we in the exterior world announced our existence with the atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. These vimanas were first described in the Indian epic Ramayana, where a celestial craft of sorts from the Vedic period, 1500 to 500 BC, referred to as a vimana, which was a bodily controlled aerial vehicle capable of traveling great distances in a very short amount of time.
Vimana. Super interesting, man. I definitely want to know more. I want to know more of the oral history. Oh, speaking of that, look, Lance.
Yeah, mine hasn't come yet. Where'd you get yours?
I told you I was buying it. I wasn't lying to you.
Oh, you got it off Amazon, didn't you?
Tell me more, Lance. Tell me more of this oral history, man. What do they say about the Atlanteans? I want to know, man. I'm super interested.
Well, it was just that people needed to keep an open mind that these new the current generations of Native people and First Nations didn't even know their history. And that was the whole genesis of a lot of our research was, sadly, a lot of those folks had, they weren't able to take that journey that their ancestors had been to learn this oral history because of all the atrocities, starting with the genocide waged against the people next to the boarding schools, and then shipping people off in the work programs where they were trying to get Native American people out of very rural areas, and they were shipping them to Chicago, Minneapolis, L.A., Albuquerque, Denver, maybe even Portland. And, they were destroying their culture by making them go to work. And so we lost so much like that. I think the Native people talked about we lost 6 generations. But the oral history on the Atlanteans specifically and the Lemurians, it's just a few people at best. And again, it was just that the Atlanteans seemed to get in on the eastern side of the U.S., while the Lemurians came in on the west side of the U.S. and western South America. The Atlanteans on the eastern side of South America, and from there they worked their way up with the people. Were they the leaders of the people? I mean, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure how far we can take it other than just to constantly go back into these books by these people. But this book here, Star Ancestors, Extraterrestrial Contact in the Native American Tradition by Nancy Redstar. This is an absolutely fascinating book. Came out in the early 90s. Nancy went on a journey, and she was going around to meet many, many Native people. And that book is so full of stories about the Atlanteans, from Cherokee people, trying to think who else. Maybe people on the Northeast, and she visited with the Hopi a lot. So, that book right there is a very good book. This book has that guy, I don't know, TJ. I'd like to meet him someday. He's got other books out there, but he's done a lot of research, and he's been down the same path as me, and he, bless his heart, and credit to him, he took the time to keep his butt in the chair and put that book together. And if people want an interesting read, get that book. It's on Amazon. I think you can get it for like $19. He takes a deep dive into a lot of that stuff. So, and I think TJ followed, he walked the Americas a lot. I think TJ was, if I remember right, he was sourcing L. Taylor Hanson and her work. But TJ did a great, he brings out the stuff on Edgar Casey and those guys. But, I mean, look, the bottom line is the Native American people, their oral history is intact. Well, maybe not all of them know it. They still have vestiges to a lot of information. And what I find now fascinating, if we transition from the Atlanteans to the Lemurians and a more contemporary landscape, they talk about back in the day having ceremonies with the star people. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys or the listeners specific places or specific names told to me, because that's not my story to tell. But I may be able to help you meet some of these people that may do it, and that'll be a hell of an oral history for you, Jeff. So, but this stuff is there. The other oral history talking about their interactions with the star people and these Atlanteans is that there was a lot of battles, this ongoing conflict with these star people. And what I have been made to understand is that this cosmic battle that was taking place on Earth that involved Native people was much, much more, and the only word that I can describe to you guys now, it was much, much more cosmic. And I'm not even sure if that's even an accurate description. What comes to my mind is to think of it more in the terms of Star Wars. And yeah, we can go there to the trilogy of George Lucas. But I had one time a Native American elder, and this person helped me a tremendous amount, opened my eyes. And this person was a tremendous historian, very, very spiritual. And she told me, and she was putting this in contemporary terms for me, but she said the stuff that was going on here made that show The Last Airbender. Wasn't there some show called The Last Airbender?
Yeah, Avatar.
She talked about that, and she said that made that show look pedestrian. Now, I can't make that up, guys. I mean, this person, so true, so genuine. It's just we have to throw away all of our preconceived notions about what was here and how powerful these people were. And that's the whole genesis of this conspiracy, if you will, Jeff, that when the people came over, they had to eradicate not only these people, they had to eradicate all their forms of culture, and you had to cut off their spirituality so maybe they couldn't access that stuff again, because you can't have the dominant society being portrayed as dumber than the ones they killed, right?
It's almost like they're doing that now, just with, technological advances. They're doing it in the sixth generational way to us now, where, I say this a lot, like it's a spiritual warfare, right? And it seems like it was back then too. And it makes total sense to me. Wipe all of it off because it's more powerful than our, industrial age that we were getting into, right? They can't have that shit competing. It's when you talk about like energy and like electricity and like we were using all that kind of stuff, like right around this time, right in the end of the 1800s, we start moving into all this stuff. You have to get rid of all the holistic shit to make way for this new synthetic world, right? This new world order. Yeah.
I mean, look, there's oral history shared to me that talks about the native people fighting these different groups of star people. Some said, like we said last week, the Greys that were indigenous to this continent when they got here, or either they were put here before the native people get to the ability to fight them. Okay, so that's one side of the story. What I found even more fascinating was a lot of history shared to me talked about the natives fighting with these spiritual beings who are their allies. And these spiritual beings, and I can't tell you any of their names. I can't tell you exactly where this happened. And if I could, I wouldn't. I'd want the native people to come on here and tell you. But I can't take it back that far. But there's stories about what these spiritual beings and star people gave the native people to help them battle these other star people. And it's mind-boggling the information they were talking about. There's two things that I can share. One has to do with the blood of these star people, these spirit beings. There had to do with their blood, and I can't remember exactly all of it, but it was something about their blood could be used to the benefit of their allies. I'm sorry, I can't remember all of that. I should have looked back in my notes.
You're good, man.
The second part about this is, you know how we've been catching a lot of this stuff about the so-called predator popping up, about people being out in the woods hunting. Dave Politis brought it to light.
Yeah, the distorted, the cloaked creature. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff about that, about the people who are called Bigfoot or Sasquatch, derogatory term by white America. Native people will call them the forest people, Big Brother, or the people. And so they get lumped into that as well, that pixelation. And I don't know what this pixelation is, but I can tell you that native people from the star people had a way to do that. Okay. Now, I'm not going to tell you the rest of that because it's not for me to say. And hopefully we can get you some guests as time goes on this summer and next fall that can elaborate on that. And frankly, it'd be better for them to tell you, because if I told you what had been told to me, we'll lose people on this one, because it's so simple of what they were given that they used to do this. And what's mind-boggling about it is that the gentleman that I was telling you about, the old intelligence non-commissioned officer, when I was with him for a number of years, kind of an apprenticeship, so to speak. And again, I'm very, very lucky that this man thought enough of me to share this information and to teach me. When he and I were discussing that at length, he was showing me in old documentation how to look for the true names of these old Native American bands. So, for instance, he said, look at the old trapper journals and the old journals from the Jesuit priests and missionaries. And he was talking about look for commonalities in a name, okay? So, for instance, one of the ones that he was showing me, and they're Siouan people, they had their bands and their locations always had to do with fish and fish scales. Now, why that seems kind of boring or pedestrian, yeah, it is. But what he was showing me was that's a telltale sign that they weren't lying, okay? Because there was a commonality. Now, he then takes it 2 steps further to say, well, what do you think? Why do you think?
Picture this. Me, Reese Witherspoon, in London, ordering fish and chips so often they might start wrapping me in paper. I'm traveling with my Wells Fargo Autograph Journey card, so I earn rewards wherever I book travel. 5 times points with hotels, 4 times with airlines, 3 times on restaurants and other travel, and 1 point on other purchases. Imagine getting rewarded for eating a toad in the hole. Wait, what is a toad in a hole?
Visit wellsfargo.com/autograph journey. Terms apply.
They're telling that story. And I said I wouldn't have the clue. Well, that's not the answer he wanted to hear. He said, think harder and come back to me on that. So I'd go off and, I don't want to sound too cliche here, but, like young grasshopper, go study this.
Yeah.
And so I went to him, and again, I failed him. But because I was only with him for like short bursts of time, and I didn't have 2 weeks to go off on my own and learn this. This was like over a 2-hour period. We're moving on. But he was making me understand that those people were the original bands of the Dakota, the Siouan people who come from these snake people who are saying that they're Atlanteans. Okay, follow the trail here. Atlanteans to Siouan people who their parent stock is the Dakota, Dakota, for all those listening. And one of their parent bands in their name had fish scales, fish eaters, but fish scale was in those people's all across their information, okay? Now, the reason I'm bringing that up and taking you on this rabbit hole, so to speak, is those fish scales relate directly to what I'm telling you about the pixelation and the predator. You follow me?
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that for now, because the rest of that story needs to come from those people. And, they can certainly share about that without giving away too much information, okay?
Okay.
But let's put that in perspective. 1600s, they're telling us where they came from. And then I'm catching pieces of this from different people that they had the ability to use some of these gifts given to them from star people or possibly the Atlanteans, or maybe they're one and both, right? That helped them cloak. Okay? Well, if that's the case, then we all should probably wake the hell up a little bit and start trying to visit with the native people. Because, yeah, I put a lot of time into this. Yes, it's been my journey. Is it a lot of work and a lot of travel? Well, yeah. But it's very, I guess what I'm trying to tell the listener and people out there is that if I can do it, so could you. Right? There's protocols and procedures you got to do, but there's ways to do this.
Okay. I don't know where to go from there. I would be honest with you, man. I mean, there's so many. Gosh, there's so many. I guess there's so many accounts of the predator cloaking, right? And it's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, dude. That's why I brought it up. It's time to throw this out there, man. You guys need to take this and run with this, okay? Because again, I'm trying to draw a parallel here to you. Star people, Atlanteans, to a major group of First Nations and Native people, the Siouan-speaking people, and one of their parent bands is out there telling the world that they're where they camped and their different band tribe names had the fish scales in it, fish eaters, all this different stuff. And then I come along and, oh, by the way, oh, hey, Lance, they, why do you think they're named like that? Well, I don't know. Well, it's because those fish scales in some way or shape or form were a gift from the star people that helped their warriors cloak themselves like the predator 16, 17, or 1800s, okay? Now, the skeptic might ask, well, then why didn't they use those abilities against the U.S. Army and defeat the Army with those abilities? And to that, I don't have any answer. I don't have any recourse. That's a hell of a great question, and I've thought about that many times myself, right? If you have those abilities, why did you not use them, right? I think that's an honest question, don't you guys?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, listen, you actually made me think of something too. I don't know if this is connected, but I imagine it probably is. And I'm trying to figure out what this is called. Dagon. Are you familiar with Dagon?
You talking about the? Go ahead.
The people from Africa?
Well, yeah. There's a Dagon, the fish god.
Absolutely, my friend. That's a great catch on your part, because the entity that brings them their information is a fish.
That's the connection. It's like, I got a picture pulled up just for the people who want to see it.
That's it. Yep.
Oh, the light is gonna
here. I can do it over here.
Pull it up. But this and some people
send it to me.
Okay, well, let me rant first, and then I'll send it to you.
Okay, hold on.
He's got a picture. There you go. So some people, like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and some of these researchers out here that are looking into Younger Dryas and ancient history stuff, they talk about the idea that this being, which has been shown in cultures all over the world, right? And they have different names for him everywhere, but there seems to be this being who walks around with what Graham Hancock calls his man bag, right? He's got this satchel in his hand, and he's wearing fish scales or a fish body as his head as his helmet.
Hmm.
There you go. See that black and white relief in the middle at the bottom?
This one?
Yep. Click on that. See if you could zoom in. Right click it and go to Open Image in New tab. And you might have to reshare to show that tab. But anyways, so the idea is that this being, whether it was before or after the cataclysms 12,000 years ago, was the beings or group of beings that were going around sharing the information.
Oh,
they were giving the information to the Central American tribes and the South American tribes, right? That's their idea of it. But what you're saying makes me think that these were literal representations of the star people or whoever they were that were bringing this stuff. And when they say, hey, look, the fish scales, these fish scales were giving us the ability to cloak, was it specifically the fish scales that were making them cloak, or was that just like a hint or a reference to this Dagon, the fish god, who brought them the information and brought them the tools that they needed to do what they needed to do?
Yeah. Jeff, you're on it. Listen, you guys need to get this one called The Sirius Mystery. Was Earth visited by intelligent beings from a planet in the system of the star of Sirius? Robert K.G. Temple. And it's the Dogon people of Western Africa. And this fish, this I'll call it an entity. Here, let me read to you. He was the amphibious being mentioned by the astronomer Carl Sagan from the Sumerian traditions and was the bringer of civilization to man. In other words, beings of this type would be a bit like mermaids or mermen and might in some way resemble our intelligent friends, the dolphins. I think that's a hell of a place to start.
Yeah, and it is interesting, that it's found in all these different cultures, and it's not the exact same depiction of this being, but
right.
Very similar. And all of them have that little man bag, that little satchel, whatever that is. And is that the information, or is that the tools? Is that whatever it is? When you were saying that about them getting this help, that's where my mind went, was this right here.
I mean, look, guys, we can't make this up. You see how the three of us are just having a conversation, and by the three of us just throwing out stuff and just talking like friends. And Jeff, you took it right to it, man. I mean, see, that's what we should be doing, is having these conversations with no bias, no preconceived notions, and also not afraid to just throw it all out there. Maybe we get it wrong, but damn, you see where that just went?
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
That's the rabbit hole, baby.
Yeah, but again, we're not the first to bring it up. I mean, what's the chances of that, right?
Right.
Well, here's the thing that's interesting to me, Lance, is I've been into this my whole life, man. Right. And I have never, listen, I've gotten a little bit into like Native American stories and stuff like that, right? Like I'm familiar with the Hopi story, right? I'm familiar with some of these ideas. Some of the locations, the mound builders, like I get and I got an idea of it. But even with all of that in the years and years that I've looked into this stuff, and I can tell you Dogon the fish god off the top of my right, I had no idea that all of these real Americans, right, the originals that were here, like they also have all these stories. I had no clue, and it's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it was a small world back then, my friend, and we lumped these people as very static. It's not the case. They were moving all over the place, and so you have to ask yourself, what did they know that we don't know? How did they transverse the oceans? By just using the stars, or maybe even other forms of navigation that we don't know? Or were they possibly able to do this by means that we can't wrap our minds about? And I firmly believe there's something to that they had these abilities to remote view. Like I told you last week, it's been made explicitly clear to me that no war party ever went out with one of these medicine men who could basically remote view. So basically, they had the ability to be a drone. Okay, let that sink in. Possibly they had the ability to telepathically communicate, to talk to each other. Then maybe they had the ability to change their bodily form into the form of an animal that can move much different. Did they have the ability to see through maybe a raven or a hawk or an eagle's eyes? Possibly.
That's depicted in a lot of film.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I just recently came across this wild theory, man. And this is playing right into it. And it kind of mixes a little bit about what you're talking about into something that we had started talking about early last week, and that was the UFO disclosure stuff. And I can't remember the source. It's gonna bother the shit out of me, but anyways, gonna talk about it anyways. I was reading that they're because of all the CE5 stuff that's coming out. Have you heard about the CE5 stuff, the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind stuff, where you call out with your mind and you're able to contact UFOs and everything? Well, there's this new theory that's starting to pop up that UFOs aren't necessarily physical at all. That they're more or less along the lines of, geez, what the heck are those things called? Oh, it's gonna bother me. Shoot, drawing a blank here, but they come into reality when needed or when thought of, and basically comes in their mental drones, if you will, that come into the physical space when your mind calls upon them, and they become a physical property when the mental mind uses them for things such as remote viewing purposes. So if you take things, and I'm not necessarily saying I believe this at all, I just think it's an interesting concept, and I think it'd be fun to talk about. You look at the things as such as Skeeter's right, the tulpa. That's exactly what I was thinking about, was the tulpa concept, where but if you start thinking about the way that they move, right, it's very unnatural. It doesn't abide by our physics, right? We go into all these concepts of, well, in order for that to work, like Elizondo had talked about, and he went into how he went to Hal Puthoff, and Hal Puthoff said that the only way for this to work is that you have to manipulate gravity, right? You have to manipulate gravity in a spherical field around this craft to remove all particulates, even molecules of air around the craft, to literally create a bubble vacuum around it to remove any sort of G-force on the occupants and the material of the craft itself, so that they can move in such ways. And that would literally allow it to go from one domain, such as space, into another domain, such as air, into another domain, such as the water, without ever breaking stride. And we see evidence of these craft going from the air into the water without making a splash, without slowing down, without being affected at all, or affecting its surroundings. Now, if these things weren't technically physical, and they were only created as a physical thing to our point of view, if you will, and they were being used by some remote viewer as a sort of let's tie simulation theory into it just for the hell of it, right? If they were some sort of remote camera for the sense of out-of-body experiences, such as remote viewing, not out of body experiences such as like you die and your soul leaves your body, but as in, you know, your consciousness leaving your body and you having control over where you go and what you see. That's just a concept that I came across the other day, and I just thought that it was weird how that kind of connected to what you were just talking about. It's just like one of those weird synchronicity things that, you know, I don't even know if you can necessarily call it a synchronicity. It was just a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, super interesting stuff. I'm actually excited to read this book, man. Not gonna lie. I just read the little like notations on the back, and now I'm like extra hyped to read this.
That almost put Jeff to sleep.
I don't read books very often. You know, I'm more of a, you know, I like to consume my information visually, but I'll read this one.
Well, that one will get your attention, and that man, he's putting it out there, and if anybody has the so-called right to do it, his family has the lineage to do it, and that might be a whole nother show to possibly help you guys meet him and have him on eventually sometime down the, you know, because there's no sense of me sitting on here and regurgitating what's in that book, because it's not, I'm a complete novice for me to even try to articulate what he is trying to tell us about the abilities and we'll just say the other side and the powers that these people had and the world they walked in and how it was interchangeable. And that wasn't that long ago, okay?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, look, up until right before the Korean War, which is 50 to 53, on one of the reservations, every year about coming up to commemorate the Battle of the Little Bighorn, these people who were there and in force, who were part of the group that defeated the 7th Cavalry, and they had one atrocity heaped upon them after another. Alcoholism, unemployment, terrible schools. I can go down and down the route, but they still got together in a very remote part of this reservation.
Carvana's so easy, just a click, and we've got ourselves a car. See?
So many cars. That's a click-tastic inventory.
And check out the financing options. Payments to fit our budget. I mean, that's
Clickonomics 101.
Delivery to our door.
Just a hop, skip, and a click away.
And bought.
No better feeling than when everything just clicks. Buy your car today on Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
To commemorate this battle, okay? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because in the same area where these people were getting together right up until the Korean War, I was told that these people who you know you might call star people, I don't want to throw out UFO, UAP, all that terminology, because then, you know, people take it to a whole nother genre. I'm not saying these people are coming from the stars. I think they are, but they could have always been here. They may just be coming from another dimension, or they may be coming from underground for all I know, like Jeremy was talking about. But all I can tell you is where I pick up the story is this stops during the Korean War. And so let's just say from 1890 to 1950, a period of 60 years, they're commemorating their greatest victory, but it was also their people's defeat in the long run. They are having encounters with people from just another world, right? Okay, fine, whatever. that where this becomes so fascinating, and what I can share without getting into the details, and I won't, is that 3 different tribes have told me the same story about what was going on there. And they describe these, we'll call them star people. These star people, they describe all of them the same way. How they moved, what they looked like, what they wore. And what I found so damn interesting is that they don't talk about these people coming in any crafts. They said they kind of moved and went across the landscape, kind of like they glided or floated. But they talked about these sparks coming out of the back of their heels. Now, were they on some kind of a device? Hell, I don't know. But you got 3 different groups of people telling me the same story, because that group of people were all together at the Little Bighorn. They were all intermarried. They had been fighting together for thousands of years, and they were together because all were one at one time. And so, are these people that are coming to see him, were they the good star people that had helped him for hundreds of thousands of years? Were they now friends? Had they been foes before? I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever find out. But I can tell you that there's a lot of native people, unfortunately, that don't even know that history, okay? And it's so wild because these people probably would not have shared a lot of this information had it not been for the Little Bighorn being the catalyst for me to be on this trail. And, I was getting referral after referral to these people trying to track this back. And the man who told me this history, he himself was a Korean War veteran, became an educator, taught for years, very humble, did 2 combat jumps into Korea. Think about that, okay? Some serious guts. And we're talking about history here, guys, of interacting, and yet we've got all of these guys running around on contemporary social media, whether it be YouTube, or we got, of course, the famous X, right? Well, to me, that story in itself is a hell of a lot better than these guys throwing out a photo of a UFO. And I'm not attacking Lou Elizondo, okay? I mean, we all make mistakes. Shit. I guess what I'm trying to articulate is this stuff makes that look like baby crap. Mm-hmm. And this isn't about me. Go talk to those people, for God's sakes. But there's a right way to do it, and you got to go into it on their terms. And I've been trying to articulate to you guys and to your listeners, if I can do it in the right way, in a respectful way, and there is a right way and a respectful way to learn this, have things taught to you that you can share back to the world. And I'm not getting into the specifics. You guys realize this, Yeah. I'm not telling you where exactly this happened. I'm not dropping names. I'm just giving you a very broad stroke of this ancient history that goes back to the people that fought at the Little Bighorn, who their descendants are. And they're still talking about this epic event up until 1950. And oh, by the way, guess who comes to see us? Well, I don't know. Who? People from the stars. I mean, you just got to sit there and just try to get your bearings and shake your head, get past your ontological shock, and focus, because it's just, it can be it can be rather, I guess, just again, ontologically shocking, because our mind can't go there, right? But once you keep an open mind and go there, and you hear these stories over and over, and they're not stories, they're history, by the way, because this man is still alive. And it's just so prevalent. But yet it's to me, it's just another part of this whitewash cover-up that again, I'm not attacking these guys that are trying to do the right thing. I don't know who's good. I don't know who's bad. Frankly, I don't give a shit. I think Dr. Stephen Greer has done great work to start this. I don't know the man, so I can't sit here. Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, Lou Elizondo, Chris Mellon, all these guys. David Grush, Jake Barber. But what do you not hear them do? They're not talking to Native people. You know? I'll get off my soapbox on that.
No, I mean, look, man, they did a hell of a job at erasing history, right? I've said this for years, and this whole thing that you're bringing to us is like just a whole like other chapter for that, So, and like I said, I've been into this for so long, and I feel like I've got a good grasp on it, but not on this part of it. So now I got like something that I'm gonna be digging it. I've already got like 8 pages pulled up on my browser on my phone, looking up names. I'm like, yo, let me see. I'm gonna have a freaking conspiracy board with the red fucking yarn, and I'm about to go deep on this now.
It's crazy because every day it's like I find new things that I have to research, and it's the last 2 weeks, Lance. It's been like, man, there's a whole section of history that I've known about, right? Mm-hmm. I've touched base with, I've visited, right? In the aspect of, I've researched Skinwalker Ranch, I've researched the Legend of the Wendigo and other various aspects, right? But I haven't dove into the real stuff, the real history, the real stuff that they're covering up in the aspects of the Native Americans.
Yeah. I think once you get into like mound building cultures too, man, like that's a big thing. And Lance, you said we'll never know about the first peopling, right? But I'd speculate that it's probably the mound builders, like you said, and when you get into that and you get into those stories from that Giants of America book, and you see some of the stuff that they were digging out of those mounds, not just the giant skeletons, but some of the artifacts and some of the what's the word, like I don't want to say like treasures, but the treasures and the things that were buried in those mounds with the giants too, and the placement too, because in a lot of those mounds they were digging up, they were finding like the giant skeleton in the center of these mounds, and all of the native peoples that were buried, after them were buried with their heads all facing inwards towards, this giant. So like they were revered as something, royalty or gods or, the original, I don't know, whatever it was, they were definitely like high up on the food chain, those giant peoples. And then you get into like all this stuff. Remember, I talk about this when I talk about dinosaurs are fake, right? Mm-hmm. How I think that when they dig up a dinosaur bone, what they're really doing is digging up giant bones, and they can't tell us that, so they got to make up some bullshit about dinosaurs, right? There's definitely like something, call it spooky, that they didn't want us to know about, like 100%, not even a shadow of a doubt in my mind about that. Now I want to know what it is, now I want to go figure it out and like learn as much as I can.
Well, somebody needs to once and for all dig into this whole Grand Canyon thing. Follow the trail with that Kincaid that went in there. Native people, if you get to know enough of them, will tell you that it's not a mystery to them who are down there. They talk about I think if it was the Phoenicians and Egyptians, the Egyptians wanted back their contacted the Smithsonian, the story was, and wanted back their material that the Smithsonian pulled out of there in the early 1900s, or they said destroy it. I mean, that thing's been so covered up, you can't even get down there anymore now. listen, I want to do a quick plug out for a guy named Terry L. Carter. I may have said this last week. Terry L. Carter. Go on Facebook. That man has been doing yeoman's work, putting out videos, and I think they're on YouTube.
You did.
Interviewing people, guys who, and ladies, who have tremendous amounts of courage and wherewithal and determination, not only to be researchers, but to physically go out into the middle of remote areas of our Great West, hunting these treasures in Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah. He's got some stories on there about there's an older couple who did some really digging into the Grand Canyon, and they basically got harassed. But I don't want to give away too much on there, but Terry may be a good guest for you guys to have on. That would be one hell of a show. Now that I think about it, remind me, Jeremy, when we're done. We'll talk about him. But he's a very good guy. He has a yearly conference. I think it's coming up in August. I think it's out in Utah. Terry L. Carter. And I can't remember what's going on there. That would be a fun one to go to. But that's a hell of a place to start, the Grand Canyon. You know, we've got to get people to get going and to get on this trail. There's plenty of room for all of us. There's plenty of ways for all of us to share our research. And, you know, the native people are ready to have their seat at the table, so to speak, and visit on equal footing, because they believe we're in for some very precarious times, and their prophecies talk about this stuff, right? So it's time we start listening to them to pay attention, not only about the past, but we need to start really focusing on the future, because these stories all go back to a time when there was this civil war on this continent, and they talk about the eagle and the condor. Mm-hmm. Well, the eagle would be people of North America versus those from Mesoamerica and South America, and there was a truce called, and we have a pretty damn good idea of where this is in the United States, where this took place. You know, I'm not in any way, shape, or form any liberty to share that with the folks right now, but hopefully we will, and we can work on getting that information out to the public in a big drop with all of these elders together and through your guys' platform and other platforms to share it all at one time, okay? But the reason I'm bringing that up is they said that if we are to be all come back to being the medicinal people that we all were at one time, all races, with the native people somehow leading us spiritually, for all of us to be medicinal people, again, there has to be a reunification of the eagle and the condor. And that can only take place when we as human beings get on this path of enlightenment. Now, whatever that path of enlightenment is, I'm not sure. But I can tell you, to finish this up, that I would like to think that us three here are having a conversation that shows that we're enlightened a little bit. And I don't mean we're better than anybody. We're not smarter than anybody. But what I do mean is that we're at least having these conversations with no biases, and that we're all listening to each other with very open minds to learn for our own journeys or to help other people on their journey. And to me, that's an enlightened human being, right? You're trying to help another man or mankind or woman or youngster. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I this is an enlightened moment in our lives right here. So why can't we carry that over and just keep doing it? Why do we have to have a government? And I love the United States of America. But why? I don't need them. I don't need the church. I don't need anybody telling me about where to go on my journey or what to believe in, because I've been to places and I've seen things that are not easily explained, and I'm just a simple novice on there. You know what I mean? I'm just a seeker and a searcher. So whatever else is out there for people to learn and to grow from, it's out there, but we have to go start finding it.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to leave off. Well, we went for about an hour and 45 minutes tonight. I just got off a 14-hour shift. I'm dead beat. It looks like our buddy Jeff there is the Viking Dead. But Lance, man, thank you once again. That was a fantastic, another back-to-back killer episode, man.
Well, thanks for the kind words, but I don't, I'm just telling you guys about the simple journey that I went on, and this stuff is out there. You guys, I can't wait to hear back from you on reading some of these books and digging in. Jeff, thanks for bringing out the Dogon people and that. Man, that was great. You jumped right to it, and that's what we got to do. And listen, I'm going to do my damnedest this summer to hook you guys up with some good people that hopefully we can get on your show that can visit and take this to a much different level than I can do it, because I'm just an emissary, man. I'm just trying to help these histories get out so people will get enlightened on their own. And don't listen to me. Take your own journey.
Well, give yourself a little more credit, Lance, because, like I said, I like to think of myself as a pretty seasoned conspiracy theorist, right? And and you've done a hell of a job at getting me super interested in a whole other path that I hadn't even been aware of, right? So give yourself a little more credit. But yeah, definitely appreciate you coming back on again, man.
No, it's been fun. I appreciate you guys letting me go on, and let's do this, man. Let's get these people on to you guys' show, and let's let you guys visit with them and get it out there to the people, and let everybody else make up their own mind and have a journey too. Sound good?
Yeah, man. And later on in the year, we'll touch base with you again. We'll have you back on, and we'll just continue the conversation. There's plenty of stuff. I got a whole Post-it note here worth of stuff that I didn't even get to talk about yet. So, it's been a great journey, Lance. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. You've been a phenomenal guest. I can't wait to grab your book. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
I love reading. It's gonna get added to the pile. I might go ahead and throw it up a few tiers, and move it up closer to the top there. Just because I'm so hot onto the topic right now, and it's so fresh in my mind that I just need to indulge.
Need to scratch the itch, everybody.
I need it.
But
before we go ahead and sign off, go ahead and let everybody know one more time where they can find all your content. Where can they see everything, Lance?
Sure. Well, I have a website, but I don't post a lot. I'm too darn busy doing constant research, and of course I work full time, and my wife and I we try to do our part, and we've got a small animal shelter here, and we do our part to try to say, I hate to say the word rescue, because these animals really make us better human beings. So I'll just say that we try to give some strays a fighting chance. But our book, myself and Donovan Taylor, is called The History They Tell. It's available on Amazon for $24.99 under Lance J. Dorrel. It's 20 chapters, and this information has been kept relatively quiet by the tribes that talk about who was really at the Little Bighorn. And I made it very simple for readers who aren't into this subject to not only have a very general idea of what happened there that day, but I went a deep dive into studying this since 1976 to bring together all the information out in the written record that talks about if what this current oral history that was shared to us, how it coincides. And what we found was this information was said on several different ways and levels, but historians, ethnographers, people in the movie industry, I can go on and on, historians have chosen to ignore it. So we just try to put it together, and then we did a historical dive on the back to see how it compares. So that's out there. And Donovan and I are still always on the research trail. We're working on working with a lot of Native people right now. We're very blessed for those folks to bring out some more information about when all were one at one time. So that's really it for me, what I do. So thank you.
Sounds good, man. All right. Well, next week we do have a different guest on the schedule. I'm not going to go ahead and put out her name as of yet, but if you have ever seen the show Sons of Anarchy, you will know her. But I guess you'll have to see who the mystery guest is next week. Jeff, you got anything to put out? Anything Shadow Band?
Nope. Sorry for all the Shadow Band listeners. Creamer has been moving, so we took 2 weeks off. We should be back to it this week. No promises. You know how I do
Man,
it.
if you ever need a sit-in host, man, just let me know.
Nah, it's all right, man. With this neck thing, bro, I've just been enjoying those extra nights of just chilling, to be honest with you. So
I see. I get it.
Yeah.
This was fun. Yeah, no.
yeah, it's just you, actually. I just didn't want you.
I know.
That's
I
it.
know. I get it. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Lance, once again, man, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. And mind-blowing, man. Absolutely mind-blowing. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it when a guest comes on and just sends me down a rabbit hole that sends me down other rabbit holes, which sends me down other rabbit holes, which just takes a week of my life and just throws it into other rabbit holes, which is what I've been doing all week. So thanks.
You like holes.
I like rabbit holes, but it's fine. Well, anyways, until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the infinite rabbit hole. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. If you're looking for more of our stuff, head on over to infiniterabbithole.com, where you can find links to all the podcast players that we are available on, and even our video platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. While you're there, make sure to check out all the links for our socials and hit that follow so you know when all the new stuff from our podcast comes out. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time, 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Your Wish is Your Command is being called the greatest success book of all time, with over 100,000 five-star reviews.
I went from $5K on my bank account to $8 million.
My income doubled.
I was able to retire at the age of 31.
It reveals the missing key to the law of attraction. Your Wish is Your Command is now available on Amazon. Search Your Wish is Your Command on Amazon to get your copy today.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.